So, Carl, you foresaw the opportunity for Halloween and going for a creeper record. So, yeah, over to you.
Yeah, so first of all, thanks to everyone for voting. I think it's safe to say it wasn't the one that we expected to win the poll. But having heard the Rolling Stones record, I'm very glad that we ended up with this one instead. Um, yeah, so thank you guys for steering us in the right direction. Um, but yeah, yeah, as you say, like the reason I picked it, um, well, a couple of reasons. I'm actually going to see them on Wednesday, so it was kind of like, oh, I should probably listen to it before I go see them. But also, primarily, um, I'm quite a big fan of horror and Halloween, so I get quite excited about spooky season. So, when looking for an album to maybe fit the bill for us for the pod to tie in with the Halloween month, a concept record about vampires inspired by the likes of Gin Steinman, My Chemical Romance, Sisters of Mercy. It seemed like the obvious choice. So this is the one that we went for. And yeah, although I didn't completely take to Creeper's last album, I did love the debut and I enjoyed the kind of singles that I'd heard for this one. So yeah, that's kind of how I landed on it. And yeah, I mean, it is a concept record, which, as you probably know by now, I love an album that kind of tells a story and takes me on a journey from beginning to end. And the story that we kind of have at the heart of the album here is essentially a vampire love story, but something that I learned through like reading like the interviews and stuff was the vampire in this case is actually meant to like represent live music, and like the Twilight-esque kind of story that is told throughout the record is actually a metaphor for like the COVID lockdown and like the eventual return of live music, which I thought was quite interesting. So it's one of those that you can enjoy it on like an entirely superficial level, but if you did want to like nerd out like me, scratch beneath the surface, there is like a bit more to unpack, or should I say, pun intended, sink your teeth into if you want
Oh,
if you want to. So
out with
yeah,
the zingers tonight.
yeah, I know we're packing them in. So yeah, that's kind of like the thematic concept of the record, and then sonically, it's just a big gothic, overly theatrical rock record in the vein of say from my era, the Black Parade, American Idiot, but also with these 80s synths and a bit of glam rock, hair metal kind of flair thrown in there as well. So with that in mind, it's obviously not going to be an album for everyone. I think you'll either enjoy it and have a bit of fun with it, or it's going to be like, this is too over the top, too cheesy, which I think would be completely fair as well. But personally, I came away a big fan of this one. I grew up with my dad, who's a huge Meatloaf fan. So when that opening, like Further Than Forever, kicks things off with 9-minute runtime and shades of Bat Out of Hell, more than a few shades of Bat Out of Hell on that chorus, I must say. But I was instantly sold from that point, and then Cry to Heaven, Teenage Sacrifice, the two singles which I still love, reminds me of something you could see soundtracking Stranger Things with its like neon glow and then like the big rock riffs that kind of come in. And then of the album tracks, Sacred Blasphemy, I thought was great fun, a bit more punky and kind of closer to the style of their debut, I would say, that track. Where the other ones are a bit more kind of, as I say, like got the glam rock kind of sheen. That was kind of more back to their roots, that track in particular. And then Lovers Led Astray is brilliant too. I think that's probably my favourite, other than Further Than Forever, of the album cuts. Just like a really dramatic track. It's got those big central riffs running through it, and then those spooky organ line that you could see soundtracking like a Adam's Family caper or something. Yeah, just love that song. And then, there's some more mellow moments in there as well. The Ballad of Spook and Mercy and More Than Death, which is the closer, is kind of like piano ballad. There was a great, you'll appreciate this, Kylie. There's a great thing that they put out to sell the tour this week where they said if you're a fan of the vampire musical from Forgetting Sarah Marshall, then you need to buy a ticket to this show. And it was like,
that was my note for that song.
Yes.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah. So they're very self-aware in that sense.
It's Dracula's Lament. It's amazing.
Exactly. So yeah, I think it's like that. Those piano moments. That's all I could think of was after reading that the other day. I was like, yeah, like you say, it's Dracula's Lament, which is great fun. But yeah, like I said, ton of fun with this record. And I think out of the 5, it's probably the one I've ended up playing the most, partly because obviously it was the first one to drop in the month, but also the time of year that it is, it just seemed to be the right album for the kind of right mood and time. So yeah, definitely one for me, but yeah, we'll see. Maybe one that others and maybe you guys might not be able to stomach. We shall see.
Could you stomach it, Kylie?
Hell yeah, I could stomach it. I loved this record. My first foray into the creeper verse here, and like I don't care. You can keep your Mariah Carey, All I Want for Christmas Is You. Like, this doesn't need to just be a Halloween record. This is a all year round ass kicker. Like, this album was so much fun. Like we've talked about the Jim Steinham intro there, Further Than Forever. I like that song is so much fun, and I can't decide. There's part of me that just wishes that was like a one-off single and not on the album, or at the end. I don't know. It works perfectly. I wouldn't change a thing, but at the same time, I kind of go, this would be a really fun standalone single, and then have the rest of this record. And I've especially, I love Cry to Heaven so much. But for me, it's this like second half, the Lovers Led Astray, Teenage Sacrifice, Chapel Gates, the little transition with The Abyss, and then Black Heaven, where I think that's like, the synths, Hannah Greenwood there finally like really unleashed to work into things, and that run right there into the Dracula's Lament at the end, which I think is an excellent closing track after all this fun that we've had, over the last 40 minutes. Just a really great record. I kept thinking of Karl, like you're talking about your dad, and this makes you excited because of his love for Meatloaf and stuff. And back when I was, mulling, getting Check This Out started, went for, probably a year before I actually did anything, because that happens sometimes. And the original name I had for it was Uncle Eddie's Record Crate, because I've got my Uncle Eddie, and forever ago, when he was like, oh, you love records, here, take all of mine that are in the basement, and it's just full of Ozzy and Nazareth and Motley Crue, and and this was immediately like, damn, I need to tell my uncle about this album, because I think he'd probably love it too. So it takes back to that 80s hair metal fun that, I enjoy that stuff, and definitely the Misfits with the horror themes, and definitely some Danzig with it breaking out of Misfits. But yeah, I don't know. This album was too much fun. My one note, and this is just a disagreement I typically have with metal albums, but the production sucks ass on this album. Everything is flat and leveled. I've listened to it, on the main sound system. I've listened to it in the car. I've listened to it on the headphones, and there's no redeeming way to maybe the vinyl sounds okay, but there's just no redeeming way to listening to this album and having it sound good, which is unfortunate because the themes, the musicianship, Will Gold's vocals, just all around amazing. I know they do this stuff on purpose with metal albums, but I just really think, they owe themselves something a little more than what we did with the production and the mix. But otherwise, holy shit, what a fun album. I really enjoyed it.
And initially I remember listening to the singles after this won the poll and being like, what is this? Just like it took me a while to kind of compute, I suppose. But you need, like, listening to it as a full album makes it a lot more like understandable. I think as standalone songs, yeah, it was just like, okay, is this like a parody? Like what is this to begin with? But I grew to really enjoy this and embrace it. And Further Than Forever kicks off with the 9-minute one we've all chatted about, and I think that's the best one. I mean, it has a line of "I'm Jesus in a strip club giving head," so we can add that to our list of lyrics of the year. But yeah, you got Meatloaf. It's like classic rock, and I love an epic track. Which is long but justifiably long, unlike that DJ Shadow one I mentioned earlier. So, she sunk herself inside me like a stone. It's the main attraction to me for this album are the lyrics. It's just interesting. It's inventive. It's an imaginative prose. And that's what really stands out. In terms of the songs themselves, I think some are less appealing to me, and I can't claim to be someone who enjoyed that kind of hair rock, poodle rock kind of 80s thing. To be honest, it just has never really resonated. Save for like Guns N' Roses or some of the more, I suppose, breakthrough type artists from there. But it's every time I did listen to it again, we talked about Bombay Bicycle Club being fun, but this was fun in a different way. And it does feel like a long time ago now that we listened to this, because this was the first one to kick off the month. But yeah, I think Black Heaven was my second favorite track on here, and I just feel that was, I've got here genuinely creepy intro. I think sometimes the kind of interesting and colourful narrative isn't quite replicated in the arrangement with the music, but Black Heaven was one where both came together so well. And I've got here that the guitar sounded like a Faith No More song for that, which is a big tick in my book. A bit like Ghost as well, who saw it Download in the summer. So I think there's a certain stage where it starts to get a little bit samey. There's guitar solos that it's there are elements of that, but yeah, the good stuff is really good, and I think I preferred this sort of speedy punk type tracks more so than some of the more synth kind of 80s tribute ones. But yeah, like I say, if you're going to get into it, get into it for the lyrics and read them as you go along. More Than Death. If I still had one, I would give my life. Enjoyed that.
That's brilliant.
And I think I've got another one here, do I? Or was it just from there as well? Teenage Sacrifice, got Burning Churches to the Ground, Making Love in the Rubble. I don't often sort of take down lyrics, but this was an album where I took down more than most. And it's interesting. I didn't realize the subtext behind the so it's kind of a original inside an enigma in terms of you got the vampiric Twilight storyline, but interesting that layered on top of that is this whole live music kind of embodiment via I mean that's almost quite frankly insane, but But yeah, like it's great, good for them, and as you say, a concept album. I'm a big fan of concept albums as well, and just something where there's a real imagination behind what's you're trying to achieve. And yeah, I mean, I think I shared with you on WhatsApp. I was a bit surprised that it was rated in the top 5 by the critics on album of the year. That seemed a bit hyperbolic, but yeah, this is one where if you are, you do like, I think particularly the Black Pit Parade era My Chemical Romance, if you enjoy that, and getting your dyeing your hair black, painting your nails black, and that kind of culture, then this is an album for you. And it's one where you won't just listen to it and sort of morbidly nod your head, but you'll actually laugh as well. And it's that nice sort of mix, which I think can appeal to a wider audience than your kind of metal brigade here. So I think they've done a really good job of making it, appealing to like I say, a wide audience. And as a first foray into, you mentioned the creeper vibe or something like that, Kylie. I think creeper cult is what they've got on Twitter as their kind of thing. So yeah, my first foray into the creeper cult, and a thoroughly enjoyable one. And yeah, despite misgivings on first listen to the singles. So yeah, one of the more unique albums I would say we've covered this year. But all the better for it.